Welcome back to Academic Reports in English. In this lesson we will look at the issue of plagiarism. This word plagiarism means copying other people's work without clearly showing your references. It's an important issue as it is seen as a kind of cheating and is taken very seriously by universities, publishers and individual teachers. But it's easy to learn some simple strategies to avoid plagiarism. So, let's get to it. A plagiarism is when a student writer directly copies from another writer and includes it in their academic report. And they do this without showing that this work is not their own. It might be a line, a paragraph, or even a whole report. In some cultures, this action of copying others' work, especially of famous people or experts, is seen as good and it's not a problem. However, in Western culture, writers need to always show and make it clear whose work it is. If the writer fails to do this, then it's called plagiarism. Very often students have not been taught about the importance of proper referencing, and so they don't know that plagiarism is a problem. But there are some easy things to do to avoid this kind of problem. The most important way to prevent plagiarism is to understand the importance of referencing and to do that properly. In lessons 7 and 8 we learned about direct quotations, paraphrasing, summarising and creating a reference list. Direct quotations are used when we want to use the exact words that somebody else has used. We learned that we put these words inside quotation marks and we add the page number to show where they come from. You might remember that in our model report we use the art of collaboration as a direct quotation. If you do this properly, then it's not considered plagiarism. The other two ways to show our references are through summarising and paraphrasing. These are very similar. Paraphrasing is when you change a short piece of work, a sentence for example, into your own words. The original and the paraphrase will be a very similar length. Summarising is when you take a longer piece of work and you shorten it, again by putting it into your own words. This idea of putting something into your own words is actually one of the main benefits of paraphrasing and summarising. Firstly, it's a way that you can show that you can really understand somebody else's writing. And secondly, if you're an English language learner, it's a great way to really practice your skills. So let's look at paraphrasing and summarising in more detail. There are three basic ways in which you can paraphrase: changing word order, changing the words themselves, and changing the grammar. In this way, you can put another writer's ideas into your own words and not be seen as copying. Let's have a look at an example sentence. Digital technology is changing the way people can collaborate. Let's look at the three ways we can change this. First of all, changing the word order. So, the way people can collaborate is changing because of digital technology. You can see that we put digital technology at the end of the second sentence, and we've put the way people can collaborate at the beginning of the second sentence. So this is an example of changing word order. Secondly, let's have a look at how we can change the words themselves. ICT is altering how humans can work together. So here we have several examples of changed words, or synonyms as they're called. So digital technology changes to ICT. Changing changes to altering. And people changes to humans. And can collaborate changes into can work together. Okay, let's have a look at the third example, which is where we change the grammar. Here we have digital technology can change how people collaborate. So the verb is changing in the present tense, changes to a modal can change. and the noun, the way, changes into an adverb, how. So those two grammar changes are one way to paraphrase. So in practice, you'll probably use a combination of all these three techniques when you want to paraphrase something. So as I mentioned, paraphrasing is where you take a quotation and you turn it into your own words. And the paraphrase in your own words will be roughly the same length. Now let's move on to summarising. Summarising is taking a longer passage and making it briefer. So how do we summarise? Well, there are 5 stages to go through. Firstly, you need to read the original source very carefully, whether it's a paragraph, a chapter, or even a whole book. Secondly, you need to highlight the key words or key phrases that you find in your source. Thirdly, you need to make your own notes based on these highlighted words or phrases. Fourthly, this is the tricky part. This is where you need to write your summary by just looking at your notes and not going back to the original source. The final stage, the 5th stage, is just a check to see whether you've missed anything in your summary. If you're wondering what to summarise, then some parts of a text are more important than others, as they will have all the main ideas. Can you guess which parts of the text will have these main ideas in? Well, I hope you can remember that the introduction and the conclusion and the topic sentences in your main body have most of the main information. So these are some places you can look first to get the ideas that you want to summarise. A final point about summarising: try to be as brief as possible, don't include lots of details, and put all the main points that you've come up with in the same order that they came up with in the original writing. So, as I said at the beginning of this lesson, copying without referencing properly is taken very seriously in the academic world, and it's called plagiarism. And many institutions, they use different kinds of software to check student work for plagiarism. The software works by comparing the student work with other work that's on the internet and seeing if there's some comparison. But teachers themselves can also see where there has been some copying without proper referencing. However, as we've seen today, it's easy to avoid these problems if you can reference properly, either by quoting, paraphrasing, or summarising. So check your own academic reports and see if you've used references properly. Are there any ways that you can improve that you can see? Try and practice the techniques that I've explained today for paraphrasing and summarising. In our next lesson, we move on to a very interesting topic: how to sound academic, or how to use an academic voice. I'll see you then.